I was happening, y'all. It's your boy Rico from Street Scores, and I came to y'all with a big quarterback update, even though most of it's rumors, like I already gave the disclaimer for in the beginning of the video. Just really wanted to open a discussion of what I would be willing to trade, what y'all may be willing to trade in the comment section and things like that. And I also have some more factual, straight from Ron Rivera's mouth quarterback updates coming later this week, probably this weekend, that I want to definitely break down and discuss a lot of different things. But today is the free agent update, mostly centered around Terry Mclaurin, Daron Payne, Brandon Scherff, Landon Collins, J.D. McKissick, Bobby McCain. We got to talk about all of these guys that played for this team in 2021 and who we're trying to re-sign or we're trying to extend before their contracts end, like Terry Mclaurin and Daron Payne. And y'all already know how this Brandon Scherff situation goes, but I still feel like I need to update y'all on how the team is feeling about that situation. And then, of course, we'll talk about free agents from other teams, like Marcus Williams, one of the free agents I've been wanting us to get for years now, but the Saints want to franchise tag him. Hopefully they stop franchise tagging him and let him hit the open market, please. Along with another free agent that was recently released from the Chiefs that we may want to target. And of course, we got to start off with a cap space update, looking at ours and the rest of the NFC East. Where do we rank? Where do they rank? Who's in a better position to improve going into this 2022 season? So let's go ahead and dive into all of that. But before we do, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell next to the subscription button so you get a notification immediately and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Like I already said, go check out my previous video from a couple of days ago. Big quarterback update, more so rumors and opinions than anything else, whereas this next one is going to be more factual and based on what Rivera and the team have said from very trustworthy sources. So make sure y'all stay tuned, man. I got plenty of content. Any updates that come out, we're going to discuss it, whether it's true or false. We got to take some information with a grain of salt, and I just like speculating what may end up happening next, while also giving my opinion on what I want to happen. Y'all already know, man, I'm big Malik Willis energy, but we'll see, man. Things are about to get really interesting when the league year resets. But without further ado, let's get it. Alright, so first of all, a big cap space update. Just to let you know, the top 10 in cap space is the Miami Dolphins, then the Jaguars, then the Cincinnati Bengals, who were just in the Super Bowl. That's amazing. The LA Chargers, the New York Jets, the Denver Broncos, the Colts, the Seattle Seahawks, and then us at number 9 with $31.9 million in cap space. Pittsburgh right behind us with $31 million. And then you got to go all the way down to 14 to get to the Philadelphia Eagles with their $21.53 million worth of cap space. And then you got to go all the way down to 27 for the Giants. They're in the negative by $12 million. And then 30th for the Cowboys. They're in the negative $21.45 million. So that's a really good outlook. Out of the NFC East, we have the most cap space easily, not even close. Again, we're 9th in the NFL. The Eagles are 14th, the Giants are 27th, and the Cowboys are 30th. And it's crazy because, like, the Giants, they're not even a great team. It's amazing that they're that ugly in cap space when their team doesn't even win games like that. I mean, usually the teams with the most cap space are the teams not spending money, so they're usually the worst teams in the NFL. But I mean, you got the Bengals just in the Super Bowl number 3, but that's just because they've hit on their draft picks very well, most notably their first round picks. But it makes sense for like the Jaguars and the Jets to be top 5. And I mean, the Dolphins are a good team, but as you can see, their owner wanted them to tank. So they just chose not to spend money on purpose. And then Brian Flores was able to will them to winning in spite of all of that. And when you look at a lot of the teams at the bottom, the Titans, excluding the Giants, kind of excluding the Vikings, but you have the Rams 29th. The Cowboys are a really good team, honestly, 30th. Green Bay Packers 31st. And the Saints, I mean, if Jameis Winston didn't get hurt, they were actually playing pretty well, 32nd. So, I mean, in general, there's a semi-correlation to how much cap space you have available to how good of a team you have been recently. But, I mean, the Giants, 27th, one of the worst teams in the NFL last year. Granted, there were a lot of injuries. And then again, the Bengals, in the Super Bowl with the third most cap space, their future is extremely bright. I mean, they could potentially be a big free agent destination this offseason to fix whatever holes they have. They could just go ahead and plug them up in free agency and try to find some sleepers in the draft. But again, I'm just happy out of the entire NFC East, we have the most cap space. The Giants and the Eagles have the best draft capital, but we're not too far behind with pick 11. It's just the fact that the Giants and the Eagles both have 2 first-round picks each. I mean, the Giants have 2 top 7 picks, and the Eagles actually have 3 first-round picks, number 15, 16, and 19. The draft capital for both of those teams are insane. I mean, they can have a complete turnaround. They can improve mightily if they pick the right guys in the draft as well. And the Eagles are the best combination of both. 3 first-round picks, all within the top 19, and the 14th most cap space in the NFL, and they just made the playoffs. But I'm happy with where we are, the 11th pick. If we don't hit on a quarterback in free agency, hopefully we go and get one with that 11th pick overall in the draft, and the free agency money leading up to that, hopefully we spend that well as well. So I'm excited about our future, man. I think things are definitely looking bright, but at the end of the day, none of it's going to matter if we don't have a quarterback. Now let's get to Terry McLaurin and Daron Payne. So it was reported a couple of days ago that no deals for Terry McLaurin or Daron Payne were imminent, but as of yesterday or early this morning, Ron Rivera said that he does expect for conversations with representatives for both players to be at the next week's combine in Indianapolis, and that's where they'll start to have their talks. He said, quote, "We have a tremendous amount of interest in making sure these guys are with us going forward," unquote. And of course, I mean, with the way that cap space is, it's almost apparently a myth. You have all of these teams in a negative, they're going to somehow figure it out. And then on top of that, you can also just shift heavier cap hits later on into future years, like how basically we did with like William Jackson and Curtis Samuel's deals. So we can put on a lot of our cap hits for later and go and get guys that we truly want this offseason if we really want to. Like, you can potentially re-sign Terry McLaurin for a lot of money, Daron Payne for quite a bit of money, and then still actually have some cap space 2022 specifically, because you put a lot of those cap hits later into their contracts. And again, like I already said, cap space is a myth. You have these teams out here with negative $1 million worth of cap space out there going to get top flight free agents. So at the end of the day, if they want somebody bad enough, they'll go and get them. If they want to keep Terry McLaurin and Daron Payne bad enough, they would keep them. But what's really interesting to hear from this for me is, I mean, of course, I get the exhale because it sounds like Terry McLaurin will be a priority, but I am a little bit surprised that they're prioritizing Daron Payne like that. I'm pretty sure they are interested in re-signing him, but for some reason, the way Rivera spoke about it, it actually seems like he is like one of the top priorities. And I always thought that, like, I mean, are you going to be able to pay Jonathan Allen, Daron Payne, Montez Sweat, and Chase Young? And if you had to pick one out of the 4 that you would not pay long term, is it Daron Payne? But it sounds like Daron Payne is a top priority. We'll see what happens when Chase Young and Montez Sweat situations come up, but as of right now, it looks like they're trying to keep the gang together. So that's really interesting. That's pretty good news to hear. We'll see how that situation ends up, because who knows, maybe Daron Payne gets re-signed and then he's part of a package to trade for a top quarterback. You know, it's just so much that could go down from today until the season starts in September. Who knows? It's so much. But as of right now, in the near future, hopefully we go and get Terry McLaurin and Daron Payne their money. I mean, we saw how after we paid Jonathan Allen big time money, that he actually had his best season of his career. Hopefully Terry McLaurin and Daron Payne do the same, where when you pay them the big money, they don't get worse, they get better. That's huge. That would be huge for us, because Daron Payne has been really good, but he hasn't necessarily been elite. He has moments, but he hasn't been very consistent. If paying Daron Payne gets him to go into Super Saiyan mode like it did Jonathan Allen, then let's get that done today. Forget the combine. Let's do that this weekend. But the reason that we're talking about Daron Payne and Terry McLaurin is because both of those guys are coming into contract years in 2022. They're not free agents yet. They still have one more year. This 2022 season, they are under contract, but it is nice to get ahead of the 8 ball and go ahead and re-sign those guys now, because you could probably get them for cheaper too, while you have an opportunity to re-sign them. They're still on your team. You don't have outside teams meddling in because they're unrestricted free agents and trying to pry them away from you, and then now you're in a bidding war versus other teams that are willing to pay him more money than maybe you would originally. I mean, if Terry McLaurin were to hit the open market, there's going to be several teams that are willing to pay him probably more money than what we're even willing to pay him for, and hope that we can pay him for if we re-sign him soon, this offseason, rather than wait until next year. Terry McLaurin is a dominant receiver. He doesn't get nearly as much credit as he deserves. He's had, out of the top 15, 20 wide receivers in the NFL, it's between him and Allen Robinson who have had the worst situations. And it's so sad that those two guys are so drastically underrated because the quarterback situations thrown to him have been terrible. I mean, just the fact that people are out here thinking DK Metcalf not only is better than Terry McLaurin, that's a debate. I personally side with Terry McLaurin on that, and that's just no bias. But some people think it's like a big gap between the two. And people bring up stats and things like that, but DK Metcalf has had Russell Wilson. Terry McLaurin has had like 12 different starting quarterbacks over the past 3 seasons, even though out of that 12, a few of them are the same guys, but it's a rotating door. I mean, it's terrible. I mean, what Terry McLaurin's had to deal with since he's gotten drafted into the league, I feel so sorry for him. So, hey, go ahead and pay him while he's still interested playing for the burgundy and gold, because you let him hit that open market, and then not only is there a chance that there's another team that wants to pay him a lot of money, but then maybe what if there's a team with like one of those top quarterbacks like Josh Allen or Pat Mahomes that's like, yeah, go get me Terry McLaurin. That's a scary thought, man. But who knows? Maybe Terry McLaurin's one of those guys that's even possibly too loyal. We'll see. But again, I think he deserves all the money. Pay him like a top 10 receiver, because he is a top 10 receiver, regardless of what his stats say. And I think one thing that's really notable about Terry McLaurin that we honestly haven't talked about enough, like just as an entire fan base, is that he finished the season very healthy. Even all of the big hits he was taking, some of them should have been at least concussions, the way he got hit and things like that. Some of the hits were even dirty at times. He finished the season healthy, and that was one of my main worries about him, because his first 2 seasons, he never really was healthy throughout the season. He was banged up this past season. He finally started and played in every game this season, and again, he ended the season healthy. I mean, of course he has to be banged up. He probably has some minor injuries, but if he had to play a game today, he could. And again, that's huge for me, because the way that the 2019 and 2020 seasons looked, it kind of scared me. Like, I didn't think he was injury prone, but I was like, man, it's always a little something, you know what I'm saying? But this season, 17 game season, first 17 regular season game season in NFL history, and he was pretty much healthy throughout the whole thing. That made me very happy when I really just sat back and thought about it. And that's another reason he's a top priority for this team, because he's so consistent. He's always going to be there. It has to be a major injury for him not to play. And then as far as Daron Payne, remember, we already picked up his 5th-year option worth $8.5 million fully guaranteed for the 2020 season. That's how he got here. Because remember, Terry McLaurin was drafted a year after Daron Payne. Daron Payne was drafted 2018. Terry McLaurin was drafted 2019. He's just not eligible for a 5th-year option. Remember, he was a 3rd-round pick. Daron Payne was a 1st-round pick. We picked up his 5th-year option. So now, going into 2022, both of those guys are in the last years of their contracts. Just wanted to break that down for some people who may not know. But yeah, man, I'm excited. Rivera said, quote, "We have a tremendous amount of interest in making sure these guys are with us going forward," unquote. That has me really excited, because I would love to keep both guys. And at the very least, Daron Payne is a good trade piece, but I don't even want to think about it like that. I just want to make sure we keep the band together on the defensive line and they run it back, because 2021 was a big disappointment for pretty much all of them except for Jonathan Allen for various reasons. And I would love to see all 4 of those guys back again so they can go out there and dominate the league like we expected them to. But with the Terry McLaurin situation, you pay him big money. You know, we got all that money tied up into Curtis Samuel still. I think it's highly unlikely that we go and get one of those top free agent wide receivers like Allen Robinson, for example. I mean, I always like to bring him up when I talk about Terry McLaurin, because both of those guys are drastically underrated. And it's literally all because of the quarterback situations they've had to deal with. But again, we will not be able to sign a guy like an Allen Robinson or a Davante Adams, because that's just too much money, bro. Once Terry gets his big money, if you go and pay like an Allen Robinson all of the money that he's probably going to ask for, you're going to probably end up paying 3 receivers like $50 million in total. Just 3 receivers, ignoring all the other receivers on the team, ignoring all of the other positions on the team, especially quarterback. 3 receivers on your team are making like a total of $50 million. I just highly doubt that happens, so that's pretty much over with. Don't expect any big name receivers to come here in free agency. If you want to, you're just going to have to hopefully get one of them in the draft or get a low-key guy in free agency. Maybe. We'll see. And the Curtis Samuel situation is interesting because, like, honestly, Ian Hartitz from Pro Football Focus has a good point. He said, quote, "Arguably the closest thing in the league to Deebo Samuel in terms of demonstrated high-end ability at both wide receiver and running back is Curtis Samuel," unquote. He's got a point. I mean, I don't want to compare Curtis Samuel to Deebo Samuel. I mean, granted, they do have the same last name, which is kind of funny. Maybe when your last name is Samuel, you just have this innate ability to just excel at two different positions at the same time. I don't know. But, I mean, what Deebo Samuel did for the 49ers this year and how Kyle Shanahan worked the offense around him, I hope Scott Turner does the same with Curtis Samuel. But as much as I hope Curtis Samuel is the next Deebo Samuel, I'm not going to immediately make that comparison. Curtis Samuel got to go out there and show us and earn that comparison. Again, I can see the argument for maybe the closest thing we have to a Deebo Samuel is potentially a healthy Curtis Samuel, but I gotta see it, man. Me personally, I gotta see it. Next up, Brandon Scherff, and it seems like we've just been here every year for the past few years. Per John Keim, he said that the Washington Commanders star free agent right guard Brandon Scherff's quote relationship appears to have run its course, unquote. So it looks like Brandon Scherff's pretty much out of here, which you can expect. I mean, the franchise tag would cost way too much. There's just no way they make that move. There's literally just no way. If we were to franchise tag him again, which is literally like the one thing that we just better not do. I mean, paying him quarterback money is a terrible idea to me as well. I'm not down to do that. But like, franchise tagging him again is literally the worst possible scenario. He will have to receive a 44% increase from last season's $18.04 million salary that he made in 2021 alone, because every time you franchise tag a guy consecutively, it just increases by a percentage. So he will be out here making almost $30 million in the year of 2022 alone. There's just no way we do that. There's just no way. So it looks like it's over with, because apparently he keeps coming out and saying that he wants to be here, but apparently he's saying the exact opposite behind doors, because Martin Mayhew has even said it several times that they offered Brandon Scherff literally record-setting money for a guard to Brandon Scherff. Like, they offered him money that no guard in NFL history has ever been paid, and he still turned that down because I guess he wants even more. So at this point, like, it's just no talking. There's just nothing to discuss here. Brandon Scherff is gone. Either Wes Schweitzer is going to have to step up and start. Me personally, I prefer to go and get one of those free agent guards that are going to be available. There's a lot of them. There's like 5, 6, or 7 solid starting right guard options that are going to be available in free agency this offseason, none of which will be asking for as much money as Brandon Scherff. A few of them may not even ask for even top 10 guard money. So I think a great choice would to be let Brandon Scherff go. Just go ahead and let that happen. When he resigns somewhere else, we'll get a great compensation, a great compensatory draft pick in the 2023 NFL draft, like a 3rd rounder. That would be nice. But this offseason, go and get one of those other guys like Anthony Costanzo. Let them start, because I prefer Wes Schweitzer as a backup. Not only just because he's a really good backup guard, and if there's an injury to Eric Flowers or whoever we sign to the start at right guard, he could just fill in perfectly, but he's also a really good backup center. Surprisingly, like when we got to the point that we were using our backup right guard to be our starting center, because we ran through like 5 centers this past season, he actually stepped up and played very well. So I just prefer him to be that flex interior lineman option. He could play left guard, center, right guard, wherever you need him. But if he's starting at the right guard position, and if Chase Roulier were to get hurt at center, or Eric Flowers were to get hurt at left guard, who do we have to replace them that's going to play at a similar level, that's going to be at least in the same range of production? So Deke Charles was nowhere near as bad as I thought he would end up being. He actually looked better than I expected late last year, but I would still prefer to have Wes Schweitzer as our plug-and-play option if there's an injury anywhere in the interior offensive line. Moving on, John Keim also reported on his podcast that, quote, they, as in Washington, want him, as in safety linebacker Landon Collins, back, unquote. But he also said, quote, something can be done to make it agreeable for both sides, unquote. And basically that they want Landon Collins back, but it's gonna have to be for cheaper. There's no way it's gonna be for the money that he's making right now. Like, he's a $16 million cap hit this upcoming season, $17 million in 2023 and $15 million in 2024. And so they're like, hey man, if we can restructure your deal and make you cheaper, we would love to keep you. Otherwise, we're gonna have to cut you at some point because you're just making too much money. And you showed us that you are a vital asset to our defense, especially that hybrid linebacker role that he started to play. That was great. That was the Landon Collins that I wish we would have been had. But at the same time, man, this is just ridiculous that how much money he's making. And with the way his contract is set up, if we would have cut him, we would save $6.6 million this season immediately. And so it's just like, Landon Collins, come on, bro, let's work something out. Otherwise, you're gonna have to get cut. It's also been reported by John Com that they are also heavily interested in re-signing J.D. McKissic and Bobby McCain. But of course, for those two as well, the numbers matter. They want J.D. McKissic back, but I agree. I think it's smart to not pay him big money. First of all, he hasn't been able to stay healthy very consistently, even though, I mean, a lot of his injuries have just been random, crazy accidents type of things. He's basically like a healthier Chris Thompson, but at the same time, it's not like he's been able to just play every game. And at the end of the day, it's a running back. In today's league, just draft another guy late in the draft. Get my boy James Cook from Georgia like late in the draft if you have to, or another option if you prefer one, but don't pay JD McKissic big money. If you can get JD McKissic back for cheap, great, definitely do it. But if he's asking for a certain amount of money, there's a certain line where it's just like, we'll figure it out. And then Bobby McCain, same thing. I mean, I like Bobby McCain, and I definitely am one of the people that's down to bring him back. Some people hate him and don't want him back at all, but if he's cheap, I say why not? I still want to go and get the guy that we're going to talk about up next, my boy Marcus Williams. I say pursue him as heavily as you can, like pay him whatever he asks for type of thing, or even draft like my boy Daxton Hill from Michigan in like the late first round if you can trade back up into it, or maybe early second if he's still available for some odd reason. Like I say, attack free safety very aggressively in free agency. But that doesn't mean you still can't have Bobby McCain as like depth, or when we run cover 3, cover 4, he's one of the DBs back there holding it down. I like Bobby McCain enough to at least re-sign him, but it's gonna have to be for very cheap, because I don't view Bobby McCain as our starting rangy free safety that I'd hoped he'd be. He showed some potential, some flashes, but overall it's time to go and get a Marcus Williams or draft a guy like Daxton Hill. And then speaking of Marcus Williams, probably the news that made me the happiest, because like the Terry McLaurin thing was obvious, so I'm happy about that, but like I already knew they were gonna do what they had to do to get Terry McLaurin back. That was pretty obvious. What wasn't obvious was that New Orleans Saints safety Marcus Williams is expected to be targeted by the Eagles, the Lions, and most importantly, the Commanders. That has me very excited. I really hope we go and snatch him up. We have more cap space than the Eagles, so if we're directly competing with them, hopefully that's enough for us to win him out. If it's about money, we can outbid the Eagles. We also have more cap space than the Lions, and that's mostly because of Jared Goff's horrible contract. But either way, those 3 teams that is reported that are heavily pursuing Marcus Williams, if he doesn't get franchise tagged again, and I doubt they franchise tag him again, because now they're just starting to get up into that. I mean, it's nowhere near Brandon Scherff bad, but every time you consecutively franchise tag a player, I mean back-to-back years, the money just keeps increasing, and now you're getting to the point where you're just overpaying him. Even as good as he is, he's still at the end of the day a free safety and not a quarterback. So hey man, Saints, just go ahead and accept the fact that you can't pay him. Let him hit the free agency market, and if it's literally us 3 teams in the lead for Marcus Williams' services, hey man, I like our chances. We got the most money. He has to look at this defensive line and see what we're building, especially if we already have a quarterback in mind by then, if we already traded for one, or if we already signed one. Hey man, come on, this is the team. This is the team that everybody going to. Go ahead and jump on the bandwagon. Let's go get us a chip real quick. And then before we move on to very random news, the Chiefs have also released veteran linebacker Anthony Hitchens, and we definitely need a big help in the run defense department. Like that's our biggest concern with the linebacker group. Coverage wise, Coholcom's getting better. I think Jamin Davis at the very least can improve in that territory and get way better in that area. So I'm not really worried about pass coverage as far as our linebackers go per se. I feel like the run defense right now is our biggest weakness easily. Coholcom was great for that department, but he is naturally just an outside linebacker. He prefers to play outside linebacker. We need a middle linebacker to come in and shut all of that down. The Chiefs cut him not because they necessarily didn't want him, they just needed to free up cap space somehow. So hey, make a move for Anthony Hitchens if you want to. I have to watch more film of him to give my like true honest opinion on whether or not we should sign him, but hey, I'm about to get on it because we need linebackers, and Anthony Hitchens, from the little bit I've seen him, from watching him in the playoffs and stuff like that, I'm down to get him. But again, I need to dive into the film to see how much I'm willing to pay him and all of that type of stuff. So we'll get there. I don't have a real in-depth opinion on Anthony Hitchens yet, but Marcus Williams, go get that guy. And then also in very, very random news, the Washington Commanders have finally updated their crest. They had all of those legal issues. Also, a lot of us as fans just didn't like the fact that they put the years of when they won the Super Bowl and not the actual season they played the regular season in. We know them as the 1991 Burgundy and Gold. the greatest team in NFL history. Go look it up. Literally look at different articles ranking the best Super Bowl winning teams in NFL history. There's several articles that say the 1991 Burgundy and Gold is literally number one, or at the very least top 5. Go look. For any of y'all that aren't Burgundy and Gold fans, especially, so y'all can go and learn something about that team, and even Burgundy and Gold fans, to make yourself feel better about the fact that our history is acknowledged amongst the greatest of the greats. Again, people that have no association to the Burgundy and Gold, they're not Burgundy and Gold fans, they're not Burgundy and Gold reporters. Go type in greatest Super Bowl teams of all time. You're gonna see the 1991 Burgundy and Gold right up there. But my point is, like, it's the 1991 Burgundy and Gold, not the 1992. That didn't even sound right. And sadly, I mean, every one of these numbers on the thing, I wasn't alive to see any of it yet. I wasn't born yet, so hopefully we can go out there and go and put one up there that I can relate to, that I've seen in person. I never had a chance to go to an RFK Stadium game. I wasn't here yet, man. We need to update our history, man. And then super duper last thing, in very, very random news, I just happened to see this on Pro Football Focus Draft Twitter, that the most NFL draft picks since 2002 by college, you have number 1 Ohio State, 151, I'm not surprised. Alabama, number 2, not surprised, 137. LSU, number 3 with 133. Florida, number 4 with 125. And Georgia, 5th with 124. And those numbers about to go up, because this Georgia year, as far as the draft goes, and y'all already know we champions, the University of Champions, you know what I'm saying? So this list, I think we're gonna at least move up to 4th. We should definitely move ahead of Florida after this upcoming draft, but it's cool though, it's cool. And if you're interested, Miami's number 6, USC's number 7, Florida State's number 8, Oklahoma's number 9, and Michigan's number 10. Nice list. Only one 2021 season champion up there though, I'm just saying. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section, let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Terry Mclaurin, Daron Payne, Brandon Scherff, Marcus Williams, any free agents that you want us to go get outside of Marcus Williams, all of that type of stuff, man. And I always appreciate all the support, man. Shouts out to all of my sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsors, whose name you see scrolling on the screen right now, man. I really appreciate y'all. I'll catch y'all later. I'm out.